Alright, hello everybody. So today I'm going to do a somewhat quick, I assume it's going to be somewhat quick, video on Rina Sawayama's new album, Hold the Girl. This is definitely one of my most anticipated releases of the year. But I would say leading up to this release, this album has a lot of parallels to Charli XCX's album of this year in that it's following arguably the most critically acclaimed point in both of their careers. Many would argue kind of like the highest point of their careers. As far as critical reception, they've been wary of like this sophomore slump kind of idea, which I'm sure it affects a lot of musicians mentally, like this curse that so many people buy into that, oh, my album's just bound to be worse since my last one was such a critical success. So despite all of that, my opinions, I would say I hold similar opinions when it comes to this album as Charli XCX's newest album, Crash, in that they're kind of inconsistent. Not really for me, as far as, and what I mean by that is like what I'm looking for in both of these artists isn't really what they are going towards, and that's okay. Minor Feeling is just kind of an intro, but I will say I really like it because of how it translates to the title track, Hold the Girl, which is also my favorite track on the album. So I'm not going to have that much to say about the lyrics on this album, but wanted to pull them up anyway. Hold the Girl is the title track, as I said, and it's probably, production here is the most reminiscent of her earlier work with Clarence Clarity, which is just much more glitchy, I guess is the best word I could come up with, and kind of leans more on the electro pop, hyper pop kind of sound that she kind of was known for when she released, like what kind of gave her so much attention in the indie music scene. The explosion of sound, I really like it, and I gotta say the vocals are beautiful. Rina's vocals on the intro and on the chorus are beautiful, and the verses, they're a little weird, but I kind of like it. They kind of like completely go in a different direction in this kind of beautiful strings, which remind me of kind of like a classical music piece, and for some reason Western, as in like cowboy motif. I don't know why it reminds me of that, but I like the whole thing. And chills. I get chills on the final iteration of the chorus with the claps. You know, I think claps can be very cheesy if overused or just used in bad context, but I think they're perfect here. Like, because her vocals on the hook are already so like grand and beautiful, kind of stripping back the instrumental and focusing on the power in those vocals. I think it's a really awesome thing to do. About some of these other tracks, we have two of the singles here, This Hell and Catch Me in the Air. This Hell was the first single for this album, and at first I was kind of on it. Definitely like a David Bowie kind of vibe I get from this track. 70s glam rock. Rina, on her last album too, paid a lot of service, I would say, to like 70s glam rock. She definitely takes a lot of inspiration from someone like Bowie, but who doesn't? I really like these verses. Even they remind me of like a very 2000s style, which Rina's kind of also known for doing a lot. Early 2000s pop, and I really like the lyrics she's doing here. I really admire and like her pointing out and looking at some of her contemporaries and talking, just like embracing that satirical anger. And almost laughing at it, laughing at how mistreated some of her contemporaries have been. So the next up, also another single, Catch Me in the Air. This track, it's like more like a ballad, I would say. The first verse, really, you know, again, very reminiscent of early 2000s. So I want to just like briefly talk about the lyrics on this album. I think this album has a lot of really introspective and great lyrics, and this also kind of relates to Crash, that I don't think they're getting the credit. They've kind of like been pushed into this narrative of like the sophomore slump, kind of moving in a more pop direction, which both of their audiences aren't that excited about. They kind of really enjoy the experimental production and the genre bending. So in that case, what is the correct way to handle when an artist that you really enjoy is receiving so much more success that they go in a more commercial direction? Well, it's an interesting situation for both of them. I'm happy for both of them that they're receiving more critical and commercial acclaim, that they're going to move in this direction. But I just don't really like the music as much. And I think like the best way to think about these albums, if you're kind of in the same boat as me and you're not really enjoying them and are a little disappointed that what you want from Rina isn't really what's here, I think the best thing to do is take what you like and just accept that. I know, like, pop and rock and hip-hop music, we always think of it so album dependent. I definitely have, for most of the time I've listened to music, where it's just like, well, this song's good, but it's not because the album isn't good enough. Like, the song's good, but the album doesn't hold up. But that's okay. A lot of the times I'm going to take the tracks I like from this album and accept that for what it is, even though the album overall bores me at points. But yeah, just saying for me, I don't like it. I think it's important to not take away from the album just because it's not for me. The production on here is pretty well done. It feels very professional. But, in a lot of cases, super clean, super professional isn't that interesting. And her vocals, she's a fantastic vocals. I've seen some of her live performances on YouTube, and it's just crazy how well she sings outside of the studio. And for those of you who are into like the mainstream, you like Christina Aguilera and I think Whitney, we talked about earlier, those are your favorite artists, and you really admire like how beautiful their vocals are, then I think this might be something you'd be more interested in than me. Personally, I mean, I'm listening to artists like Playboi Carti, one of my favorite artists. I couldn't explain why, but a lot of I would probably want to listen to him sing/rap, is what he does, more than some of these songs, which is just like, from a logical perspective, it's like, what? It doesn't make any sense. Music doesn't really make sense. Music taste doesn't always make sense. So that's why I could say everything is very well done here. Vocals are beautiful, and there's a lot of introspective lyrics, but none of it really hits as much as her last album, because it's just not as interesting to me. Your Age actually is probably one of the more similar tracks to her last album, more of a glitchy sound, and it's pretty good. I enjoy it. We have Clarence Clarity on production on this track. So for those of you who are looking for that sound that Rina had before, the more experimental, you could call it hyperpop influence, definitely listen to the track Your Age. It's pretty good. Probably not as good as some of my favorites on her last album, but still pretty good. So on the back end, we have a lot of ballads. And as I said, if you're into like Christina Aguilera, kind of singer who's just like you really appreciate, or what's it called, Adele. If those are some of your favorite artists, I think you really gotta check this out because there's some beautiful vocals. And yeah, the track Hurricane's not really a fan. Send My Love to John. Maybe if it was just one or two of these tracks and they weren't back to back, I could appreciate them more. But really, like, the last 5 tracks here are all like very laid back ballads. It's kind of like they're all Chosen Family from her last album, and even though I probably like Chosen Family more than most people, I would not be a fan if there was 5 of them. Phantom, which at first I really was not a fan of this track. I think it was the fourth single. Really grew on me. I would say it's probably my favorite of this back end, and this is a dope ass cover. Sum it up. This album is interesting. I'm gonna keep revisiting it. I think. Hope maybe some more of it will click for me, but not necessarily what I was looking for from Rina. That's okay. I really am excited to see like all the success she's achieving from this album, though. She's been like all over the place. You know, it's similar, as I've mentioned a couple times now. This album definitely has some parallels to Charlie's album from this year, and despite the fact that, you know, neither album is as great to me as their previous albums, which were two of my favorite albums of 2020. That's okay. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy this album. I would definitely recommend checking it out if you're a fan of some of the artists I've mentioned before, like that 2000s pop sound, and you're really a big fan of these like very powerful and beautiful vocals. I would recommend checking it out. Yeah, so hope you guys all enjoyed this quick little video. Just want to talk a little bit about this album. But yeah, I'll be coming with I have some ideas for something bigger. Maybe my next video. I have a couple ideas, so hopefully you'll check those out. Yeah, leave a like, sub if you like what you're seeing. Check out some of my other videos. Yeah, and I'll see you guys next time.